Okay, let's dive in. When we think about making real changes, big goals, writing a book, running that marathon, maybe launching a business, or even just feeling healthier, we often jump to thinking we need some massive, like overnight revolution.
Yeah, this huge upheaval, go big or go home, that kind of mindset.
Exactly. A total diet overhaul starting Monday, suddenly committing to 3 hours of writing every single day, just disrupting everything.
It feels like that's the only way, doesn't it? But what if all that pressure, that need for giant leaps is actually, well, holding us back? What if the real secret is something much, much smaller?
That is precisely what we're digging into today. We're exploring the surprising, almost, I guess, deceptive power of tiny, seemingly insignificant changes. Our source calls them atomic habits.
hmm And our main source for this deep dive is that fantastic book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Really insightful stuff.
So our mission today is to unpack the core ideas, the really practical takeaways from this book. We want to understand how focusing on something as small as an atomic habit can actually lead to those, remarkable results we're all looking for.
And it's interesting because the author grounds it in a pretty intense personal story. He had this
Mm.
severe injury in high school. We're talking multiple facial fractures, seizures, vision problems,
Uh-huh.
just awful.
Yeah, truly traumatic. And his recovery, the first steps back, weren't these grand gestures.
Not at all. The book makes it clear they were minimal. Things like just trying to get slightly better sleep or even just keeping his dorm room a bit tidier. Tiny things.
Right. Not exactly heroic stuff. But what those small actions did, apparently, was give him a little foothold, a sense of control, maybe some confidence, when everything else felt chaotic.
And that little bit of control, those super small, consistent actions, they started to build on each other. They compounded.
And that compounding, those tiny steps taken day after day, well, they eventually led to really amazing outcomes. Becoming a top college athlete, an academic All-American. That whole experience seems to be the bedrock for his understanding of how powerful these tiny habits can be.
Which brings us right to that core concept, the power of tiny gains. The fundamental idea is that these small, almost unnoticeable improvements, when you do them consistently over time, they snowball into enormous results.
It's basically compound interest for your life, isn't it? Getting 1% better today. Feels like
And that's
nothing,
totally negligible.
but keep that up. Day after day, week after week, like money earning interest on interest, that tiny gain starts multiplying into something really significant.
Yeah, the book uses this great analogy. Imagine an airplane flying from LA to New York. If you shift its heading by just 3.5 degrees.
Which is tiny, right? You'd barely notice the nose of the plane move.
Exactly, almost imperceptible in the moment, but maintain that tiny shift across the entire country.
Not landing in New York anymore.
Not even close. That small adjustment puts you hundreds of miles off course, landing you in Washington, D.C. instead. It really highlights how a small change in your trajectory, your daily direction, leads to a vastly different destination down the line.
So success isn't usually about that one big, life-altering transformation. It's not the Hollywood makeover montage.
Huh. Right. It's the direct result of your daily habits, those small choices you make again and again and again.
It really flips the focus, doesn't it? What matters most isn't your current results, like where you are right now.
Hmm.
It's your trajectory. Are your habits like pointing you towards success or subtly steering you away?
And that explains the iceberg illusion. We see the breakthrough, the big success, that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
But underneath the water, hidden from view, are all those countless tiny actions, all that previous effort building up potential.
It's like that ice cube example. It's
Yeah.
warming up, 25 degrees, 30, 31. Feels like nothing's changing. You're stuck in what the book calls the valley of disappointment.
Yeah, you're putting in the effort, but where's the payoff? It's frustrating.
But then that one tiny shift from 31 to 32 degrees suddenly melt. The breakthrough finally happens. All that earlier warming built the potential for that visible change.
And that potential, that compounding effect, is why habits are such a double-edged sword. They can work for you building knowledge, wealth, relationships, or they can compound against you piling up stress, negative thoughts, outrage. So understanding how they work is just critical.
Okay, so this leads really naturally into a key distinction the book makes, which I found super interesting. The difference between goals and systems.
Right. Goals are the results you're aiming for. Winning the championship, building that million-dollar company, playing a new piece of music perfectly.
The destination. Whereas systems are the processes that get you there. For the coach, it's how they recruit, run practice, build team culture.
For the entrepreneur, it's testing ideas, hiring, marketing, sales funnels. For the musician, it's the practice schedule, how they break down difficult parts, seeking feedback. It's the journey, the routine.
And here's the kicker, the provocative question the book asks. What if you totally ignored your goals and focused only on improving your system? Would you still succeed?
Whoa. That really challenges how we usually think, doesn't it? We're so focused on the goal line. So, what's the argument? Why is focusing just on the system potentially better?
Well, the argument is that focusing on the system is actually the key to sustainable long-term success.
Hmm.
And there are a few reasons. First, goals often provide only temporary fixes. Like, you set a goal to clean your messy room.
Okay, done. Goal achieved. Feels good for a moment.
Right. But if you don't change your underlying system, the habits of tidying up regularly, putting things away, the room just gets messy again pretty quickly.
Ah, okay. You fix the outcome, the symptom, but not the cause, the input. The system is the input. Makes sense. What else?
Another big point is how goals can kind of mess with your happiness. There's this implied bargain. Once I achieve X, then I'll finally be happy.
Right. You're constantly deferring feeling good until you hit some future milestone.
Exactly. And honestly, how often do we reach a goal, feel that brief high, and then
Mhm.
just drift back to our old ways because the goal itself was the only thing driving us?
Yeah, that happens all the time. So the system focus is about the long game.
Pretty much. The book talks about goalless thinking, which isn't about having no direction, but about committing to the process. The cycle of continuous refinement, constant improvement of your system, your dedication to the process, not just the prize, is what really determines your progress over time.
That connects really well to another huge concept in the book, identity-based habits. It breaks down behavior change into 3 layers.
Right. There's outcome change what you get, process change what you do, and then the deepest level, identity change what you believe about yourself.
And the argument is that the most sustainable, powerful way to change your habits is to focus on who you wish to become, not just on the outcomes you want.
That really resonates.
Yeah.
It makes intuitive sense. If you're trying to force a habit that clashes with your core beliefs about who you are, well, good luck sticking with that.
Exactly. The book uses an example of someone quitting nail biting. They didn't just focus on stopping the action. They shifted their identity to someone who takes pride in having well-groomed hands. They became someone who doesn't bite their nails.
So true behavior change is identity change. You might start exercising to lose weight, an outcome, but you'll only keep going if you start seeing yourself as a healthy person, an active person. It becomes part of who you are.
And the amazing thing is your identity isn't fixed. It actually grows out of your habits. Every action you take is like casting a vote for the type of person you want to be.
Oh, I like that. Casting a vote.
Yeah. The more times you go to the gym, the more votes you cast for I am an athlete. The more times you pick up a book, the more votes for I am a reader. That identity gets stronger with repetition.
So the real goal isn't just to do the habit, read one book, run one race. It's to become the kind of person who does those things naturally. To become a reader, become a runner. Your habits are literally shaping your deepest beliefs about yourself.
You are becoming your habits. It's profound stuff.
Okay, so we get the power of compounding, the focus on systems, the link to identity. But let's get practical. How do habits actually work on a neurological level? The book breaks down this fundamental feedback loop.
Right. It's a simple 4-step pattern that drives pretty much all behavior, constantly running in the background. Step 1 is the cue.
The trigger.
Exactly. Some piece of information that suggests a reward is nearby, like you walk into the kitchen and see a plate of cookies on the counter. That's the cue.
Okay, then step 2.
Step 2 is the craving. This is the motivation, the desire. It's not the cookie itself you crave, but the change in state it promises, maybe relief from boredom or the sugar rush.
Got it. The feeling you're chasing.
Then comes step 3, the response. That's the actual habit you perform. You walk over and eat a cookie.
And finally, step 4, the reward.
Yep. The cookie tastes good, satisfies the craving, and crucially, the reward teaches your brain. Hey, that sequence C cookie, want cookie, E cookie worked out well. Let's remember that for next time.
It reinforces the whole loop, like those classic experiments, right? Thorndike's cats and puzzle boxes.
Precisely. The box was the cue, wanting to escape was the craving, pressing the lever was the response, and getting out to food was the reward. The loop got stronger each time.
And the reason our brains do this is efficiency, right? Automating solutions to common problems saves mental energy. Habits free up your focus.
Absolutely, which is great when they're good habits, less great when they're bad ones. But this loop is the foundation. And understanding it gives us the framework, the 4 laws of behavior change, to deliberately build better habits.
All right, let's break down those laws.
Yeah.
How do we use this loop to build good habits? What's law number 1?
Law 1, make it obvious. Simple enough, right? If you want to do a habit more often, make the cue, the trigger for it, really visible and clear.
But first, you need to even notice your current habits. That habit scorecard idea seems useful here.
Definitely. Just listing out what you do each day, wake up, check phone, brush teeth, make coffee, and labeling them as positive, plus negative or neutral based on their long-term impact. No judgment at first, just awareness. Realizing that even bad habits are serving some purpose, solving some immediate craving.
Okay, so once you're aware, how do you make the good cues more obvious?
One powerful technique is using implementation intentions. It sounds fancy, but it's just deciding in advance exactly when and where you'll act. I will behave here at time and location.
Like, I will meditate for 1 minute at 7 a.m. in my living room.
Exactly. That specificity makes it concrete. There was a study mentioned about flu shots. People who wrote down the exact time and place they'd get their shot were way more likely to actually do it.
It removes the ambiguity. What else?
Habit stacking. This is where you link a new habit you want to form with one you already do automatically. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit.
Like, after I finish my morning coffee, I will put my cup straight in the dishwasher.
Perfect. The existing habit acts as the cue for the new one. It piggybacks on an established routine.
And the environment seems huge here, too.
Oh, massively. Designing your environment might be the most underrated strategy. We often don't realize how much our surroundings shape our choices. That hospital cafeteria example is brilliant.
Right. They just made water more visible and accessible than soda.
And bam, water sales shot up. No nagging, no posters, just changing the environment to make the desired choice the easy, obvious one.
So put your vitamins next to your toothbrush, leave your running shoes by the door, keep fruit in a bowl on the counter, not hidden in the fridge drawer. Make the good cues impossible to miss.
And the flip side, the inversion of this law for breaking bad habits. Make it invisible. Reduce your exposure to the cues that trigger them.
Get the junk food out of the house. Move the TV out of the bedroom. Delete the time-wasting apps off your phone's home screen. If you don't see the cue, the habit often doesn't even start.
Sometimes removing that initial trigger is all it takes.
Okay, law 1, make it obvious. Got it. What's law number 2?
Law 2, make it attractive. The habit needs to be appealing. We need to want to do it, or at least anticipate wanting the reward.
This brings in dopamine, right? That anticipation chemical.
Exactly. Habits are, at their core, dopamine-driven feedback loops. And the key insight is that dopamine spikes not just when you get the reward, but in anticipation of it. That feeling of wanting, of craving, is powered by dopamine, and it's often stronger than the pleasure of the reward itself. Think gambling, scrolling feeds. It's the anticipation.
So we need to harness that anticipation for good habits. How?
One cool strategy is temptation bundling. This is where you pair something you want to do with something you need to do.
Like only letting yourself watch your favorite Netflix show while you're on the treadmill.
That's a classic example. The want, watching the show, makes the need, exercise, more attractive because they happen together. You bundle the temptation with the beneficial habit.
Makes sense. What about social influence? That seems huge for attractiveness.
Absolutely massive. Humans are herd animals. We want to fit in. The book says we tend to imitate the habits of 3 groups in particular.
Okay, who are they?
First, the closer family, our friends. We soak up habits from the people we spend the most time with. Second, the many, the tribe, the culture. Social norms are incredibly powerful. We often conform even when we know better, like in those Ash conformity studies.
Right, where people agreed with obviously wrong answers just because the group did.
Yeah. And third, the powerful people we admire, those with status or prestige, we imitate behaviors we think will earn us respect or approval.
So the takeaway is, find your tribe.
Pretty much. Join a culture where your desired behavior is the normal behavior. Find a running group, a book club, a community of entrepreneurs. When you share an identity with the group, it reinforces your own desired identity and makes the habits associated with it feel normal and attractive. Like those Polgar sisters who became chess masters, chess obsession was normal in their family.
Okay, and the inversion. How do we make bad habits unattractive?
It's about reframing, shifting your mindset. Highlight the downsides of the bad habit, not the perceived benefits. Instead of, I'm giving up smoking, think, I'm freeing myself from the need to poison my lungs. Make it seem undesirable, even ridiculous.
You can also reframe the good habits to focus on their benefits, right? make them sound more appealing.
Definitely. Instead of, oh, I need to go for a run, try, it's time to build some endurance and clear my head. Saving money isn't deprivation, it's buying future freedom. Those little mindset shifts make the habit feel less like a chore and more like an opportunity. Even reframing negatives helps meditation interruption. Opportunity to practice returning focus. Pre-game nerves. That's heightened energy ready to perform.
And creating a little ritual beforehand can help too, like the author Ed Lattimore putting on headphones before writing.
Yeah, associating something you enjoy or a specific action with the start of a difficult habit can make it feel more attractive, more automatic. It signals it's time.
Okay, so make it obvious, make it attractive. What's law number 3?
Law 3, make it easy. This one is so important because we tend to gravitate towards the path of least resistance.
Yeah, our brains are wired to conserve energy. We often default to whatever requires the least effort, scrolling the phone, checking email.
Yeah.
It's just easy.
Exactly. The book emphasizes that we learn and form habits through action, through repetition, not just through planning or thinking about it. Remember that photography class study?
Oh yeah, the quantity group versus the quality group. The ones told to just take lots of photos ended up with better pictures than the ones trying to perfect just one.
Right. It shows that just doing the thing, taking action, is more important than being stuck in motion planning, strategizing, learning endlessly without actually practicing. Repetition is how habits become automatic. It literally rewires your brain neurons that fire together, wire together. Frequency matters.
So how do we make good habits easier? Reduce the friction.
Precisely. Reduce the number of steps between you and the good habit. Think about those Japanese factories optimizing workspaces. Every wasted movement removed makes the process smoother, easier.
So strategies like preparing your environment are key here too.
Yes, but for ease, not just visibility. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Chop vegetables for the week on Sunday. Put the book you want to read on your pillow. Make the next action effortless.
And then there's the 2-minute rule. I love this one.
It's brilliant. When starting a new habit, scale it down so the very first step takes less than 2 minutes.
Read before bed each night becomes read 1 page.
Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat.
It sounds almost too simple, maybe even pointless.
But it's not about the 2 minutes. It's about mastering the art of showing up. It makes it so easy to start that you can't really say no. It's a gateway habit. Once you've read 1 page, maybe you'll read more. Once the yoga mat is out, maybe you'll do a few poses. You standardize the habit first, just make it happen consistently, then you can optimize it later. That story of the guy losing 100 pounds by starting with just 5 minutes at the gym, perfect example.
Okay, makes sense. Standardize before optimize. And the inversion. Make it difficult.
Increase the friction for bad habits. Unplug the TV after use and put the remote in another room. Take the batteries out. Make it a hassle.
This is where commitment devices fit in, right? Making a choice now that locks you into better behavior later.
Exactly. Like Victor Hugo supposedly locking away his clothes so he had to stay inside and write to meet his deadline. You're making the bad habit harder or even impossible to do in the moment of temptation.
You can make bad habits impractical, like how cash registers made stealing harder for employees. Technology can cut both ways here, making bad habits frictionless, like streaming autoplay.
Or you can use it to your advantage. Use website blockers, set up automatic transfers to savings, use outlet timers to turn off the Wi-Fi router at night. Automate making the good choice easy and the bad choice hard.
All right. Obvious, attractive, easy. What's the 4th and final law?
Law 4. Make it satisfying. And this might be the most critical rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded gets repeated. What is immediately punished gets avoided.
But that's tricky, isn't it? So many good habits have delayed rewards. Exercise, saving money, studying. The big payoff is way down the road.
Exactly. We evolved in an immediate return environment. Our ancestors needed instant feedback, find food, feel good, touch fire, feel pain. But we live in a delayed return environment. Bad habits, smoking, junk food, procrastination, often give immediate pleasure. That's the conflict.
So our brains are wired for immediate gratification, but success often requires delayed gratification. How do we bridge that gap for good habits?
We need to find a way to inject some immediate satisfaction into the good habits. Add a little bit of pleasure right after you perform the action. Remember the Karachi hand washing example?
Yeah, they used a nicer soap that smelled good and lattered well.
Right. It made the act of washing hands itself immediately more pleasant and satisfying, reinforcing the habit beyond just the long-term health benefits.
Or like creating a visual reward, moving money into a specific savings account labeled Dream Vacation right after you skip buying something unnecessary. You get that little immediate hit of seeing the fund grow.
Exactly. The key is that the immediate reward needs to align with your desired identity, not conflict with it. Rewarding yourself for exercising with a giant sundae probably isn't the best long-term strategy.
Good point. What about tracking? Does that help make things satisfying?
Hugely. Habit tracking is powerful because it provides clear, immediate evidence of your progress. Seeing that streak build up, checking off the box, it feels good. It creates a visual representation of your work.
Like Trent Dursmid moving paper clips from one jar to another for each sales call. Or a comedian tracking jokes. Benjamin Franklin tracking his virtues.
It makes the invisible visible. It keeps you honest, builds motivation, and that visual proof of progress is inherently satisfying. Don't break the chain.
And the rule if you do break the chain.
Never miss twice. Everyone slips up. One missed day is an anomaly. 2 missed days is the start of a new unwanted pattern. The key is to get back on track immediately the next day.
Okay, so for bad habits, the inversion is make it immediately unsatisfying.
Right. If a behavior has an immediate cost or punishment, you're less likely to do it again. Make failure painful, basically, so you're motivated to avoid it.
This sounds like habit contracts.
That's one way. Making a formal agreement, often with an accountability partner, stating the habit you'll perform and the negative consequence if you don't. Knowing someone else is watching or that you'll face embarrassment or a penalty is a strong motivator. Like that guy Brian Harris having to dress up ridiculously if he missed his targets.
Just having an accountability partner, even without a formal contract, can make a difference.
Definitely. And again, technology can automate the punishment. Loss aversion apps like Stick, where you literally bet money on yourself and lose it if you fail, that makes the consequence immediate and painful.
So those are the 4 laws. Make it obvious, attractive, easy, satisfying. And their inversions. But the book also talks about tailoring this, right? Finding what works for you specifically.
Yes, absolutely. It acknowledges the role of genetics and natural inclination. Not everyone is built the same way.
Like the Michael Phelps versus Hicham El Guerrouj example, the swimmer's body versus the runner's body.
Mhm.
Genetics don't determine destiny, but they do suggest where your efforts might yield better results.
Exactly. Habits are just easier to form and stick with when they align with your natural talents and interests. It's about playing a game where the odds are stacked a bit more in your favor, or even creating a game that suits your strengths.
So how do you figure out what those strengths or inclinations are?
The book suggests some self-reflection questions like, what feels like fun to me that seems like work to others? What kinds of tasks do I learn quickly? Where do I get praise or positive feedback seemingly without trying? What activities do I enjoy doing even when they become challenging?
It's about finding that intersection of what you're good at and what you enjoy.
Right. And it relates to the explore-exploit idea. Try different things, explore different areas. When you find something that clicks, where you have an edge and it feels engaging, then you exploit that, double down, build systems, and focus your habits there.
But even once you find that sweet spot and you've built the habits using the 4 laws, there's still a challenge, isn't there? Getting bored.
Oh, yeah. Boredom is maybe the biggest killer of progress in the long run. Mastery requires pushing through periods where things feel repetitive or tedious. Think of any expert musician, athlete, writer. They spend countless hours on fundamentals, often doing the same drills or exercises over and over. Steve Martin practiced comedy for something like 15 years before his overnight success.
So you have to, like, fall in love with the boredom.
In a way, yes. You have to embrace the process, even the mundane parts, to reach excellence. It connects to the Goldilocks rule: we stay most engaged when tasks are right at the edge of our current abilities. Challenging enough to be interesting, but not so hard they're discouraging. That keeps you in flow. About 4% beyond your current level is the suggested sweet spot.
But that seems different from the variable rewards we crave, like social media.
It is. Variable rewards are addictive because they're unpredictable, but true mastery often requires predictable, deliberate practice.
And there's a potential downside to habits becoming too automatic, right?
Yes. Once a habit is ingrained, you can slip into mindless repetition. You might start paying close attention, become less sensitive to feedback, let small errors slide. Your performance can actually plateau or even decline.
So how do you counteract that?
Through reflection and review, you need systems for periodically checking in, evaluating your progress, and making sure your habits are still serving you effectively and haven't decayed. Like Pat Riley tracking detailed player stats for the Lakers, or the author doing annual reviews and integrity reports. Goals can help here too. They provide a target to check if your systems are actually working. Review keeps you sharp and allows for course correction.
And avoid getting complacent or letting pride stop you from seeing flaws.
Exactly. Don't let your identity become so rigid that you can't adapt or accept criticism. Reflection helps maintain self-awareness. Like that Lao Tzu quote, "Mastery of others is strength. Mastery of yourself is true power."
Okay, so wrapping this up, the core message really seems to be that huge results come from tiny beginnings, consistently applied.
Yeah, it's the compound effect of those atomic habits, guided by making them obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying.
And focusing on who you want to become, your identity, and building the systems to support that rather than just chasing goals.
Understanding that basic loop cue, craving, response, reward, and how craving often drives us more than anything. Our feelings push us, and rationality kind of catches up later.
And that definition of satisfaction was interesting. Satisfaction equals liking minus wanting. If you're wanting, always outstrips your liking.
You're going to be perpetually unsatisfied. It reminds me of that Seneca quote. Being poor is not having too little, it is wanting more.
So success isn't really a destination you reach. It's more like a system you keep refining, an endless process.
Exactly. It's about the journey of continuous improvement.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over. If happiness often just sort of happens as a byproduct of our actions, and satisfaction is that fleeting moment when a desire is met before a new one pops up, how can you maybe tweak your daily habits, your systems, and even just your perspective to cultivate more of those moments of contentment right now instead of always chasing the next thing? Something for you to think about.